Reddit. What is the saddest feeling in the world? A good friend of mine lost her 20-year-old son unexpectedly one day when he just literally dropped dead in college studying at his desk due to some undiagnosed heart problem. 1 year later she buried her husband, who died of cancer, leaving her all alone. I learned from her that there is some sadness that never leaves you, and to hug my family members and tell them I love them whenever I can because you never know what will happen. Seeing my mum cry gives me a horrible feeling in my gut. Absolutely this. My parents are both super emotionally strong and I've only seen them cry once or twice. I remember when my grandmother died and my dad held a speech at her funeral. He started off good, but then slowly his words started drowning in sorrow. Rough crap, especially for a kid. Feeling completely alone, not being able to sleep, not wanting to even begin to deal with the new day. That and then you wake up in the morning but don't have a reason to. I have 3 siblings who all have little ones. As it is 2015, I often see my siblings post photos of their kids, especially baby pictures, and the happiness is contagious. My siblings are rightfully so elated to be parents. It's clearly one of the most fulfilling things they've ever done. But I have a 4th sibling, too. She was my parent first. She died when she was 3 years old in 1979. When I was growing up, my parents had no problem talking about her, but we didn't talk about her all that often. I knew that they loved her and that they are holding on to the idea of an afterlife so that they may see her again, but we just didn't talk about her much. This past Christmas Eve, after having a really nice dinner, my parents and I came home and busted out some photo albums. My dad is recently retired, and he's making these albums in chronological order for us kids to have. One of the first albums had photos I had never seen before. Photos of my parents' life together when it began. Photos of my sister. So many photos of my sister. The same kind of photos I see my siblings take of their children. And I get it now. My parents were just as happy as my siblings are now. So excited, thinking they had the best lives to be so lucky as to have such a beautiful child. And the sadness is overwhelming to me, knowing how the rest of the story goes. No one deserves to lose a child. My dad came from a large family and the youngest girl in the family died when she was a few years old. We visit her grave every few years less often. Now that I'm grown up, and my dad talks a little about her when we do, it's weird knowing that there was this person that could have been in your life, and you never got the chance to meet them. Grief over someone's death. It's hard, especially the first time you experience it, to comprehend that an entire life and everything that goes with it has been snuffed out, and that no matter what, you will never see that person again. To me, that's the saddest part. My dad passed away 2 weeks ago, and I'm still struggling to come to terms with it. Sometimes it almost feels like he's just not home yet, like he's back late at the office, and then reality hits me that he's really gone, and the devastation and tears set in. This is the first time I've experienced such grief and it sucks balls. Total loneliness. Any other feeling can be at least soothed by sharing it with a friend. For me it sucks because it's my only comfort. My mind is a never-ending merry-go-round of my own BS insecurities and excuses to never get my crap straight. It's feeling of emptiness. I feel lonely as frick and unloved and filled with self-hatred. That's not the worst though. It's being forgotten by someone you could never forget. The worst pain in my life was from the day I interrupted my husband's suicide attempt this past August. Opening the guest room door to find his army uniform laid out on the bed next to a big bottle of pills and booze sent me into silent shock. I didn't cry out freak out, but it was almost like an icy cold blade in my stomach. I couldn't react and knew I needed to find him. Seeing his face as he came up the stairs with his army boots, the only piece missing from what he had laid out. Seeing his true despair and his realization that I knew what he was going to do made it almost too hard to bear. He dropped the boots and ran. That night, after admitting him to the VA, I cried in the bathroom of the VA, wailing inhuman sounds of grief that came and wanted from deep inside. I had held myself together to get him safe, but when all was over, it flooded over me. I felt as if I had already lost everything. I felt helpless. I felt responsible. I could have lost my beloved. He was hurting that bad and I almost couldn't help him. That's a pain I wish on no one. I still see his uniform laid out whenever I see the guest bed. Knowing you've fricked something up or hurt someone you care about, and knowing there's nothing you can do to fix it. Purposelessness. Not having a goal or passion. Not wanting anything. It sucks. Holding your dog while the vet puts him to sleep. Goodbye, old friend. I picked my dad up from the airport after not seeing him for 2 months. I was so tired on the drive home that I did not converse much. We stopped and had McDonald's around midnight. The following morning he had a stroke and eventually passed. 3 years later, my mom is on life support due to a disease that took over her lungs. She was on life support with a machine breathing for her. She was coherent and was able to hear me and respond to my questions by squeezing my hand. The doctor told me that I needed to make a decision on keeping her on life support, something I was not prepared for nor could do. She was my freaking best friend, for crying out loud. I wanted what my mom wanted, so I started to ask her if she knew where she was, and she squeezed my hand letting me know she knew. I then asked her if she knew she was on life support, which she responded she did. Finally, I asked her if she wanted to go be with dad or stay with me and my sister, and I'll never forget how hard she squeezed my hand, signifying her desire to be with my dad. This was the single most heart-wrenching moment of my life. I will never forget it. The saddest feeling is regret, especially when you find out later that something you really wanted was yours for the taking, but you were too weak to seize the opportunity. Crap, I've spent the last 3 hours avoiding calling a girl who gave me her number. This post is what I needed. I'm going in. Watching your children starving or dying. Deciding you're going to commit suicide but then not following through. You're still technically alive but you feel dead inside. Just defeated and not even the same person you used to be. Being suicidally depressed and alone, trying to reach out to people and having everybody turn you away. Jeez, I feel for you, because I feel exactly the same. It's hard to scream when you know no one will hear you. The feeling that in the end of your life, you may be completely alone. Finding out that the person you thought you loved cheated on you. Knowing your real love will never come back. Years of love have been forgot in the hatred of a minute. Being in love with someone that loves someone else. Become a professor at their son's school and take away his house points for insignificant reasons. Taking a loved one to the airport not knowing when you'll see them again. And if you'll ever see them again. Loneliness is one of the worst. Nothing makes it better. You can be lonely in a room filled with 1,000 people. When you've worked your absolute hardest at something, but you still fail. I tutored algebra last year to high school students, and one student, his name was Ryan, would slave over every problem. He worked so hard and you could see he put 100% into the work, but he got nervous at test time and failed his quizzes repeatedly. He would come into the tutoring lab every week with his quiz and on the verge of tears. It was incredibly sad to see. The unmutual feeling of being close to someone. It just sucks for someone to not care about you as much as you care about them. When you're sitting in a dark room in front of a computer, it's 3 AM and you're all alone, scrolling your files for something to do, refreshing the front page of Reddit every 10 seconds just to see if something new has been posted, looking through your Steam games catalog and finding no games that appeal to you at that moment. You just sit there in the dark, doing nothing for hours, contemplating all of your options until the morning sunlight shimmers through your curtains. The rays of defeat shine upon you as you lower your head in shame, whispering to yourself, I should have just played League or Counter-Strike. And then you go to bed, wake up, repeat. When your first pet dies and the concept of death really hits home, you then go in and look at your parents and grandparents and realize that you are more than likely going to have to deal with their deaths as well. Losing your mother, father, best friend. When they die it doesn't really hit you, it hits you later, and what hits you is that they are gone completely and forever. You will never hear their voice again, or see their face. All you are left with is regrets at first. That fight, that time you were in a bad mood and were rude to them. It takes a long time to get over the fact that you can never apologize. You can never make the past right. Knowing that you don't want to pick a side in your parents' divorce, but deep down inside you already picked your mom. Not being able to go back to how happy you were before. It won't ever be the same. Watching the woman you love slowly lose control of her own thoughts. I've been in the hospital with my so for the past 3 days awaiting a bed in the psych ward. In these days I've witnessed demonic possession, temporary loss of memory, she couldn't recognize our 2-year son at one point, violent anxiety attacks, and a plethora of voices telling her what to do and what is going to happen. It has been the longest 3 days of my life. I would give anything to make her well. This really hit home. I guess being rejected by everyone. I felt this maybe a few times in my early teens, and it hurt like heck. Today I feel horrible when I see kids being bullied, picked on, or just being rejected. That creates trauma and insecurities for life. I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way I'm ever gonna love you. You are the most important person in my life. I care deeply about you and want you to be happy. I want you in my life as I realized a life without you is incredibly hollow. But I don't want to be with you. This happened to me not long ago. I'm really freaking confused. My story doesn't compare to most of these people's stories, but I came out gay to my father, my best friend, when I was 17. The day before I told him we were out at a baseball game, went out to our favorite restaurant and had a great freaking time. When I told him, I was crying and he said he just wanted to help me with whatever is wrong, that I could tell him anything. I'm gay, and he hit me and told me I will never accept that. He left our house, got in his car and drove off. He came back, ran through the door, tears in his eyes, threw me to the ground, went to my room, handed me a few things from my room, dragged me to our front door, took my phone from my pocket and handed me $20. Go to your aunt's house. I walked across town and stayed there. My aunt is liberal, but I was too scared to tell her why I was kicked out of the house, so I just told her we were fighting about what we thought was right and wrong. The next day my aunt told me there was a phone call for me. It was my dad, who said he wanted to meet for breakfast. He drove up in his truck, said, "Have you changed your mind?" I said, "It's not something I can change my mind about." He said, "Don't ever speak to me again." I tried stopping him to get him to listen for a second. I said, "Can please talk for a second? We come from a little bit of money," and so he used that as leverage over my sisters to take his side over mine. But the fact that 6 years has gone by and I still have no communication with them is kinda sucks. I didn't realize my dad could turn from being my best friend to never speaking to me again in a few short exchanges of words. Since then, my aunt forced me out of the closet to her, but in full support. I lived with them for a year, went to HS, occasionally saw my family at church and things like it, went off to college and haven't seen them since. Failing an exam you studied hard for. Losing both your children Halloween night in a car accident while the youngest was in his Halloween costume. Knowing your child has something wrong with them before they are born. Being told your wife should have an abortion. When your child is born they are flown by helicopter to San Francisco Children's Hospital. Watching your newborn have multiple surgeries. Driving 4 hours each weekend to see your wife who is living in a Ronald McDonald house. They help tons. Watching your child prosper for a couple of months only to go back downward. Being told there is nothing more to do and you only have a month or so left. Taking your child home knowing there is nothing you can do but still hoping. Flying across the country to seek other solutions but being told no. Feeling guilty that you should be doing more and not knowing what to do. Having hospice come to drug your child so they are not in pain. Holding your son of 6 months and watching him take his last breath. Having to call the mortuary and watching them take him away. Not knowing what to do now. Feeling helpless. It has been 14 years and I think about what he would be like today. He was a trooper and stronger than I will ever be. The first time you opened the front door immediately after your dog dies. Having no friends at all. When a girl dumps you because she doesn't have any time for relationships and then you find out she has a new boyfriend in few days. As an international student, I say being lonely. I don't mind to be alone, but I don't like to be lonely. The lack of connection to people around. Sometimes you just sit there and let the thoughts run. It's just you and yourself there in a quiet room. Don't know what else to do besides thinking how lonely you are. Then you can't talk to anyone about this because they don't understand. If they do, they probably don't care. You end up not having many people to talk to. Knowing that someone you love unconditionally chose death instead of staying alive with you. Unrequited love. Knowing that you're going to die soon and your life has been a tedious waste of time. As a person with intense anxiety about romance, emotional intimacy, not the breakups themselves, but returning to the same spot after each one, the spot of knowing that you ruined it, you can't control your emotions and be stable or dependable in that one area even though you do just fine in any other aspect of life. Knowing that I would be an amazing father and super supportive husband, done work in childcare, have great family relationships, and yet probably never will, because I ruin every single relationship by being too needy, too anxious, and being stuck in this stupid cycle. Then I get over it after a while, get myself together, get confident, go out and land a great girl with little effort, have a great few months together. Then the euphoria starts fading and suddenly I need her and I'm so insecure and how the heck do I always do this, and boom. Toxic. One more life I'm shut out of. When you're surrounded by people but still feel alone. People of Reddit who work in a casino, what's some of the saddest moments you witnessed? Former poker dealer at a casino. An older gentleman started to have a heart attack at the table. I called the floor person for assistance with the call button. Paramedics rushed in, etc. All within minutes. In this instance I am instructed to keep the game rolling by the floor person as he whispered in my ear. 2 hands are dealt and played and a player at the table requested the heart attack guy get moved somewhere else as it is disrupting the game. Another player asked to have his chips picked up and call for the open seat because we have a wait list. I was disgusted. I saw a poker dealer have an epileptic seizure at the table. The paramedics hadn't even arrived before players were complaining about getting another dealer or requesting a table change, while the dealer was seizing on the floor next to them. A guy blew his retirement and had to go back to work. He was a retired postmaster and went back as a delivery driver. Oh no. There were these 2 middle-aged Greek or Cypriot ladies who were always on the slot machines. Every day when I started my shift they were there and they were there when I finished 10 hours later. And still they're in the same clothes the next day oftentimes. They were super nice and always polite to the staff. One day they hit the jackpot and win big. I think it was either £15K or £45K. It was a good few years ago now. Everyone was overjoyed for them, except the managers obviously. Well, the managers then gave them free meals at the restaurant and an open bar tab until every single penny of that money was clawed back into the casino. We used to have a woman who would be on the blackjack tables for 5 days nights straight. Her husband would call and tell her that her kids wanted her home. Her boss actually came to the casino to try and get her to leave. She was missing work. I don't know what happened to her, but she's probably ruined her life. We also had a few regulars commit suicide and a few go to jail. Former valet at a casino. The amount of daily regulars who drove barely functioning vehicles full of trash, roaches, and rats who would actually valet their car and go gamble away any money they had to their name was honestly depressing. The saddest I remember was a 90-plus-year-old lady who drove a 91 Corolla, and when we got in her car we realized she had no power steering fluid at all and her steering wheel would barely turn. I have no earthly idea how her frail arms could turn it. We went and bought her some before she left that evening. That was really nice of you to do. During my 8-hour shift, a gentleman won $15,000 on a slot machine. Punched out at end of shift and had the next 2 days off. Returned to work after my weekend to find the man still sitting at the same slot machine. He had been there for 2+ days losing $15,000. If you win that much money, pretty much have the mentality in which you will never win this much again. I live next to Atlantic City and when I'm up like $50 I walk out of the casino and play in the ocean for a few hours. I always feel as if the casino paid me to have a fun beach day. A previous boss of mine worked at a casino in AC. He said he saw all kinds of terrible things, but the worst was when they had to close the main lobby cause a guy jumped from the 4th floor after losing. It's not the big things, it's the little things. You see someone rocking 3 machines at 9 AM on a Tuesday. They have places they ought to be, not in this casino. Thanksgiving, Christmas, heck, even Mother's Day, places slammed. Go home people. My mom works as a dealer at a casino and has told me multiple stories of grown men wearing adults' diapers at the table so they don't have to leave to use the restroom. As a Vegas regular I can attest it is orders of magnitude worse when they do not wear the diapers. I worked with a woman who would pee away an entire 2-week paycheck within 15 minutes after getting off work, and then she'd start writing checks and hitting the ATM right after. Her family was ruined eventually, and things got so bad for them financially that her husband killed himself. She got a life insurance settlement or some sort of fund upon his death and blew it all gambling within a month. Her dad died not long after and left her inheritance, and she lost all that within 2 months. No idea whatever happened to her, but she was absolutely insane. It's been about 15 years, but I worked in one for about 4 years. The one that stands out was a woman who came from the country to the big city to get Xmas gifts for the whole family, including young kids who still believed in Santa and all of that, but spent all of the Christmas money at the casino before going to the mall. Also, a few years later I went back to visit, and when talking to one of the pit bosses about who was still there and whatnot, she told me one of my old regulars, who was actually nice and likable, a rare trait in that business, had recently committed suicide as a result of gambling too much. Addiction is a horrible disease. We had to evacuate and close down for the rest of the day due to a burst pipe causing no running water. When I walked outside, there was an elderly lady throwing a legit tantrum in the parking lot. She was on the ground kicking and screaming. Her screams sounded like something you'd expect from someone who just lost a family member, not someone who had to leave the casino for a few hours. I left, but some of the security who were dealing with her told me later she was too upset to drive home and they had to call a family member to pick her up. I've seen some crap. A lot of what others have commented is fairly common, but this was definitely the most messed up. Sheesh. It's literally an addict in withdrawal. Grandmother, mother, and daughter heading to the casino by car from 2 hours away. Mother had a postcard to get a free cast iron pan for showing up. Daughter is more than 8 months pregnant. 1 hour away from the casino, daughter starts to have labor pains. Mother won't stop and take her to the hospital. She's gotta have that $10 pan. They arrive at the casino an hour before the promotion was going to start. Mother raises all heck trying to get her pan, but the workers for the promo haven't arrived yet. Daughter ends up having to be transported by ambulance to the hospital, all over a $10 pan. Did she ever get the pan? In general, people who come for the first time and are super nice and friendly. They don't care about winning or losing much, just came to have fun. They come back a few more times, then after a few years they are regulars that don't smile anymore. They don't laugh. They don't count their wins, just their losses, and sweat every comp point they earn and act like gambling is their job now and the focus of their life. I've seen more than one person have this happen to them. The other saddest thing is when a regular stops coming in and their spouse comes out and tells us they passed. We're almost family with some of our regulars and it hurts to get that news. I did casino security for 3 years before I became a police officer. Had a code M. Medical. Early one morning, around 4 or 5 am. Old guy in his 80s passed out and fell out of his chair. Wife sitting next to him. I was the first to get to him. Did a quick assessment and found he didn't have a pulse. Immediately started CPR. The old lady looked over and said, "Oh, he does this all the time. Don't worry about him," between chest compressions. I told her he wasn't breathing and she just kept playing her a lot machine. She didn't miss a spin even when the paramedics took him away. I saw her again the next night and asked how he was doing. With the straightest face ever, she said, "Oh, he never woke up. I'm sure he's in a freezer by now," and went right back to the same machine she was playing the night before. That reaction sounds like 20% gambling addiction and 80% bad half-century of marriage. Worked in a casino for about 7 years and the one that has always stuck with me was when a kid, 18-19, came with his friends and lost $100 playing blackjack. Then he was sitting there, looking dejected and watching his friends win. He left and came back with another $100. I could tell from the way he was acting he probably didn't have the original $100 to lose, so he definitely couldn't afford to lose another $100. So I asked if he was sure he wanted to play. He nodded his head and solemnly said yes. Unfortunately he lost that money too. $200 is a lot better than what I've read so far. Hopefully he learned something that day. I worked at a casino as a dealer through college. A lot of incidents were pretty sad, especially with regulars that you liked. One regular would tell me about his middle school age kids, and then I would realize the next week or so later that he was missing their school plays, recitals, etc. because he was at the tables. I remember working an overnight one Christmas Eve and begging him to go home when 6/7 am rolled around because his kids would be up and opening presents. Other times just people screaming at you for stealing their mortgage payments from them that month, then seeing them back again the next day. I worked a small casino for a couple of years and have seen many. The sadness ultimately made me quit. Can't tell you how many times I've seen people gamble their entire paycheck and either cry and leave in shame or get mad and try to fight me or staff. A bit late since there's been so many comments, but nevertheless I got something. Not a worker, but had an uncle addicted to gambling. Worst thing that happened was he used all of his money, lost his job from it, begged for more money which led to him going to the casino again to spend it. Then he went homeless, and any money that went to gambling again. A vicious cycle where he slept on park benches and spent any time on gambling at the nearest casino. Found out all this one day when he walked by my house with a huge beard, looking like he hadn't showered or eaten in a long time. Good ending. Eventually his mom, my grandmother, took him back in when he begged for a place to stay. I now live with him. He works a full-time job with nice pay and doesn't drink or gamble anymore. Not the best at managing his money at times, but it's safe to say he's far from where he started. I don't work in a casino, but live near Atlantic City. Seeing unattended children playing near the entrance to the casino floor where children aren't allowed. You brought your kids to a casino where kids aren't allowed, and just left them in a hallway. I went to a casino for the first time a few years ago with a group for my mother-in-law's birthday. There were signs everywhere stating that it is a crime to leave children unattended in your car in the parking lot. Pretty freaking sad. A woman approximately mid-30s dancing her butt off on the dance floor of the nightclub and suddenly dropped dead. I watched her die. All the time a VIP booth was packed, drinks flowing, everybody picking on the guy that passed out. End of night comes and they tell us he is going to need a wheelchair. Not uncommon. Guy was dead a good hour. The deaths always bug me. Casinos get a treatment similar to airports. The unspoken rule is to treat them as if alive until they get off the premises. Even if they are an hour dead, the goal is to get them out as quickly as possible without freaking out the patrons. New Year's was always stressful. It was never a question if someone would die that night. It was a question of how many. A good year would be one. One year we had 4. The unspoken rule is to treat them as if alive until they get off the premises. Fun fact. Similarly, no one ever officially dies at Disney World. Not a casino employee. My story comes from my time in the military. Slot machines are everywhere in Germany. The small post I was on had a few slot machines in a back room of the bowling alley. One of our uncos would go every payday and blow his entire paycheck over lunch. We would know if he won or not by the mood he was in after lunch. When he won he would tell us about winning $600 after dropping $1,500 into the machine. I saw that happen a lot in Okinawa as well. There was an unco in my barracks that would hit up the junior enlisted for $20 at a time when he was on a streak. A couple that used to come gamble at a casino I worked at killed themselves after losing too much money. Same casino had a patron whose son came in to tell her to stop and that she couldn't keep gambling the family's money away. She would easily lose over $10,000 on a lot of days she went in. You get pretty desensitized to the plight of the gambler at your table, but the double suicide and the yelling son stuck with me. Had a player in higher limits whose wife came in telling him that they needed to go to the hospital. Apparently their son had a stroke. He was still there by the end of my shift. Not a casino worker, but I know of a guy who sold his car to a loan shark pimp after losing $80,000 in 2 days. He even went to the DMV and transferred the title to a prostitute. Then when he got out of his fog, he used his spare key and found the car. He took it. He was pulled over for driving a stolen vehicle. Not sure how his court case went. Whoa, talk about your dangerous liaisons. Not a casino, but volunteered at a local fireman's carnival bingo night. 20-something lady was playing quarter per game bingo with roll after roll of silver quarters. I tried explaining to her that they were worth more than a quarter and she didn't care and kept playing with a look of desperation in her eyes. Never won a game that night. In my mind, she was blowing through a coin collection that her parent or grandparent had carefully put together. Parents used to own a small casino, 15-ish tables, $100 limits. I worked weekends in the cage. Employees were allowed to gamble once off shift, and I watched one guy, after getting off of work around 7 p.m., proceed to lose his house payment, car payment, child support, max out his credit cards, everything by the time we closed at 6 a.m. I wasn't a huge gambler before that, but seeing that firsthand scared me off of taking any chances in a casino beyond casual playing. Not a casino, but the most horrible thing I remember hearing about a girl, in the army, stationed in GA. She had a newish baby, and would buckle baby in the car seat and drive across the bridge to SC to gamble. It gets hot as heck in GA, and this woman one day went to the casino, parked her car on the far side of the parking lot, just past or behind a dumpster. Other patrons remember her getting up occasionally and looking out the door but being there pretty much the whole entire day. That evening when she drove back on base, she looked in the back seat and noticed that the baby was clearly in distress. Baby had in fact been dead for some hours, was in very bad shape, eyes bulging, weird bubbles coming out of its mouth. Just dang awful. She left her infant in the car seat to bake to death in the sun, while she gambled her military pay away. Absolutely disgusting. This is so horrible. Dealt poker in a casino for 3 years. One of my fellow dealers was arrested on the gaming floor during our shift for stealing rake. I had told him a week or so earlier to be less obvious about it. We had clear tip boxes. He had custody of his 4 kids. Emphasis on had. Not a casino but a charity poker room at a bowling alley where I was a dealer. Guy was pretty drunk and just so bad at poker. Kept losing the max buy-in, $300, and would go straight to the ATM and rebuy. With every rebuy the desperation became greater and greater. I just wanted to tell him to pack it up before he lost more, but that would have probably cost me my job. Eventually I think he must have emptied his bank account. I had never seen someone lose so much money in one night. I was on a cruise when I was 18. First time gambling on a casino and learning a little blackjack. I was at the $10 minutes, I think max was $300 table, and was betting the minimum each hand. The guy across the table was drunk and betting the max each hand. I watched him split, double down, and lose over and over and over. He just kept making stupid calls and must have lost $20k in about 15 minutes. I went to a casino once and in the washroom there was a grown man bawling his eyes out telling me he lost everything. It still haunts me how utterly destroyed this guy looked. Very, very sad. This was 20 years ago and I haven't stepped foot in one since. Atlantic City around 20 years ago, one of the 3 times I tried gambling in my life. Saw an elderly couple crying while talking to a security guard. They were telling him they had no money to pay the tolls to get home. I remember thinking the security guard was a real butthole. No emotion on his face as he told them they had to leave the casino. After they left though, he announced to everyone who had stopped to listen that the casino had already given them money to get home, which they had turned around and gambled away, putting them back at square one. I don't know what was worse, seeing an elderly couple cry, seeing this dude just jaded by his terribly necessary job, or just seeing that side of gambling. I'm grateful I was never bitten by that bug. Security guards see them same excuses multiple times every single day. Can't blame him. I worked at one in Vegas for about 6 years. Suicides, so many suicides. Z, not a casino story. However, in NC gambling hasn't always been legal. A few years ago I was helping manage a local grocery store and we had a regular. She was always pleasant, always got her things and left quickly, until the scratch-off dispensing machine was installed. Within less than a month she went from chipper old blonde lady to the strange wrinkled witch at the scratch-off machine. She'd spend her entire month's social security within a few minutes, scurry to the next store to test her luck and come back to me. It was an everyday thing that came out of nowhere. She spent her brother's prescription money and begged me to sell her a Powerball ticket because she might win him some chemo and he'd be thankful. Needless to say, that was one of my last lottery sales. Not a casino worker, but I had to assist someone with the aftermath of a casino binge. In my job in insurance, of all things. Early in my career, I worked for a small town insurance agency. Had a call one day from a man who needed to add a lien holder to his and his wife's cars, which has previously been paid off. The name was one of those skeevy loan places, so obviously something has gone wrong. Dude proceeds to tell me that he and the wife, though in reality, it could have just been him, had gone to the casinos, spent too much, and he had to take out a loan with the cars as collateral, and he wanted to make sure his wife didn't find out. Would we be mailing anything about this? Could we not? Had to tell him that the insurance company was required to mail out updated deck pages, and there was nothing I could do to stop that, so his only chance would be to beat her to the mail. God, I hope she beat him to the mail, and nailed him to the wall. My dad worked at a casino and still went there and gambled away all our money and ran up credit card maxes. My parents made probably regular middle class money, yet because of him we lived poor. Don't work in a casino, but I go to a smaller casino here in Vegas where a lot of locals go to play. Lady hits 40k on a Keno game. After she got paid out she was walking around giving all her friends and people she chats with $100 bills. I left shortly after because I just go to buy smokes and play my change here and there, so I'm not sure if she played more that night. About a week later she was in there playing every time I went in to buy smokes, so I'm sure that money disappeared quickly. Lady hits 40k on a Keno game. After she got paid out she was walking around giving all her friends and people she chats with $100 bills. I wonder how many of those friends are going to help her out with the unexpected tax bill that's coming. My wife worked at the gift shop of a casino a few years back. From the store you could see the majority of the main floor. She noticed a guy sitting at a slot machine for the majority of her shift and he was still there when she went home. She comes back in the following morning and the same guy is still there playing. A few hours go by and he leaves and goes to the bathroom. Not 30 minutes pass until there's managers and EMTs rushing to the bathroom. Turns out the guy had lost all of his money and savings on that machine and decided to slit his wrists in the bathroom. The whole thing really shook her up for a few days after it all happened. I had an aunt and uncle that worked in one of the casinos up in Black Hawk Company. They would see a spike in business when social security and welfare checks came out. Most of those people would gamble away the only money they received once a month. I heard a similar story about horse racing in the 1970s. SS check day was the biggest day at the track. Not a casino, but a hotel attached to a casino. We sometimes have VIP guests who have their room paid for by the casino. Anyways, one of the regulars had to be dragged out by local PD. Turns out he robbed a couple of gas stations to fuel his habit. I wasn't there, but heard about it from the night audit agents. I don't work at a casino, but I have family that are farmers in a rural part of my state where a casino was built on an Indian reservation. Many of my family's neighbors bet and lost their entire farms, and my great uncle and his neighbor had purchased a very expensive piece of farm equipment together that they shared that ended up being repossessed because of the neighbors gambling. My uncle was out thousands and was p. I'm curious what happens to the land after that. One night people were playing at a row of slot machines. I don't know if they knew each other, but one in the middle collapses and fell to the floor. EMTs were called and started loading her onto the gurney to wheel her out to the ambulance. The other players just kept feeding the slot machines. Never looked down. Never asked what's up with her. Just kept on playing. Cold. Watching the video feed as per outside unit tried and failed to revive a dead guy he found face down in the parking lot, and his wife gets out of the car to see them call it. She didn't take it well. Watched multiple families realize that they'd just lost their life savings. Caught a group of kids, they were all over 18, but none were 21, doing M in the parking lot. Sent them off with the cops. The conversation with parents when they realized what was going on was not fun. Watched a kid that worked in valet total a handicapped guy's car that had all of his assistive stuff in it. There's more, but that comes to mind. Brother works in a casino. People bring babies all the time and leave them with slightly older siblings in an adjacent gas station rest stop pretty much all day. I know I'm late to the party, but I have one that has stuck with me. 5-year employee at a casino. An older couple, 60s, would come in 5-7 nights a week. The casino term is they are avid experienced players, addicted. She would go upstairs to play slots and he would play cards downstairs. A sizable group of executive-level casino employees made their way to her machine and asked her to have a quick word in private. She refused to leave the machine. They attempted again to ask her to speak in private, but she very forcefully declined to leave. She demanded to know what they wanted, so one of the members let her know that her husband had a heart attack and he was being rushed to a nearby hospital. Her response, "Give me his wallet," and went back to the machine. Broke my heart, even when I think about it more than a decade later. He died that night. She didn't leave until the next morning. About 15 years ago, I was a bartender at a casino. I had a lot of regulars. I got to the point that I knew what drink people wanted and how often they would want one, and what they would switch to based on wins or losses. I had a regular family that gambled together, a father, mother and daughter, who was about my age. After a year or two of seeing them come in at least once, sometimes twice a week, we got to know each other pretty well. The parents would always try to set me up with the daughter. She wasn't my type and I was in a relationship at the time, so I always let them down easy. Anyway, it came to pass that the father got diagnosed with terminal cancer. Mother and daughter came in way more often, almost every day, complaining of the high medical bills every chance they got, how the father was suffering so much, etc. I felt so bad for the father, knowing he was dying of cancer, and instead of having family there for him, they were at the casino spending money that may or not have been needed on medical bills and end-of-life care. Regardless of the money, seeing them at the casino while he suffered alone was a lot to deal with. I wish I could have said something, but I needed my job more than moral high ground. After he passed away, the mother and daughter were in the next day. I brought their drinks. I also brought his favorite drink, a White Russian. The mother cried. She stopped coming in as much for a little while. I don't feel like it was a spiteful act, but I think it did put things into perspective for them. Probably too little too late. I was invited to the funeral but unfortunately had to work. They were way better tippers when the father was alive, and after he died the mother would order as many screwdrivers as I was legally allowed to give her. I can't remember if it was one an hour or every other hour. So she and her daughter started really having a crippling gambling addiction as well as possibly developing alcoholism. I hope they are better now. They were excellent, nice, caring people who had an addiction. I dislike gambling to this day. I may have been in a casino less than 5 times in the last 10 years, mostly to eat at the buffets, which are amazing at some places and absolute garbage at others, and to occasionally play table games, actual cards instead of machines. Who was your saddest celebrity encounter? My brother met Gene Simmons backstage at a show he was playing in. Gene complimented my brother highly on his guitar playing but then said, "Too bad you'll never make it," and just walked away. I had an entirely eyeball body language conversation with Chris Pontius in a guitar center. He was playing an acoustic. I saw him. He looked at me. I realized who he was. He saw that I recognized him and he gave me a look that was so sad. Like, "Please don't announce to the world that I'm here." I nodded and he smiled and looked relieved. The end. My mom found Paris Hilton incognito in an airport, came to find me, brought me to a tiny lady in a hoodie and big sunglasses in the middle of the airport, goes, "Hi, are you Paris Hilton?" then pushed me in front of her and said, "Here, say hi to my son," like I was a weird birthday gift or something. She said, "Sup." I said, "Sup," then she did this weird little laugh. Then my mom goes, "Okay, bye." That was my sad and awkward meeting with Paris Hilton in an airport. Crap, at least she said sup, lol. I sat next to Kevin Spacey on the tube when I was in London with my dad. My dad was so pumped that he was next to Kevin Spacey. He's a huge fan, but he didn't want to ask him for a picture while we were on a crowded train, so he just let him be. He was just happy to have seen him. Then this guy randomly shouts from the other side of the train, "Hey Kevin, how's the acting going?" And everyone's faces turned to him. Felt so bad for Kevin Spacey. No one would take their eyes off him and everyone was taking photos and whatnot. Just felt sorry for the guy. He looked like he had just come back from a run or something and wasn't wanting to be recognized. Can't imagine living my life constantly trying to avoid being recognized. He'd probably just come back from pushing some poor girl in front of a train. I met Hulk Hogan when I was 4, late-ish 80s, at some wrestling thing in Dallas. All I remember is that my dad got his attention as he was walking toward the ring, and when he came around he stuck out this giant hand and said put it there. Darling, I recognized him but he was scary, so I peed my pants and cried. I guess it's obvious now that he wanted a handshake or a high five or something? No idea. Anyway, scared the pee out of me. Dude is huge. Betty White. It was right after the Golden Girls and Golden Palace had ended. Her career was not in the best place at the time. I was at the Beverly Center in Los Angeles and saw a poster promoting Betty White signing her latest book about how much she loves animals. I liked the Golden Girls, so I thought I would swing by the bookstore to take a gander at Betty White. It was so sad. I'll always remember she was sitting alone at a big table with a stack of books in front of her. People were in the bookstore shopping but no one was buying her book or really acknowledging her. She just sat there, pen in hand, waiting. She would occasionally wipe off some imaginary dust to look busy. I'm getting the chills just remembering it. Of course, I was such a self-involved college kid that I just stared at her from far away. I should have just gone up and talked to her. I was a little kid in the 70s. Like pretty much every little boy, I thought Evel Knievel was a serious badass. When I was about 7, I was in the airport with my mom and her boyfriend and a friend of mine. My mother's boyfriend told us that Evel was in one of the lounges. He was sitting in a back corner, drinking a glass of some kind of booze and engulfed in a cloud of cigarette smoke. We both approached him excitedly and asked for his autograph. He was obviously drunk, but he picked up a couple of cocktail napkins and scratched out his signature on both of them. Then he looked at us and said, "Before I give you these, I'm going to teach you something." My friend and I looked at each other, totally starstruck and grinning like idiots. Evel proceeded to tap both of us on the arm. "Does that hurt?" he asked. We both shook our heads and said no. Then he poked us lightly in the chest. "Does that hurt again?" We both said no in unison. Then he made fists out of both hands with the middle knuckle sticking out and brought them down sharply and simultaneously, protruding knuckle first, onto both of our heads. "Does that hurt?" he asked. Neither of us could really answer. I was holding back tears from the pain. He waited a few seconds and said, "That's why you wear a safety helmet," and handed us the napkins. Evel Knievel punched my friend and me in the head when we were 7. That is to be the most drunk 70s attempt to teach kids about safety that I've ever heard. Not me, but my friend's sister-in-law saw Jack Black walking down the street and eventually they crossed paths, and her, not wanting to pass up the chance at meeting him, approached him. She said something like, "Is it really you?" and he said yes. Then she said, "This is so weird, it's really you," and he said, "It's not weird for me." Then he asked her where she was going and she said she was going to the weed dispensary. Thinking he might find it funny, but he turned a bit sullen and said he was going to visit his mom in the hospital. She said she wouldn't bother him for a picture and he thanked her and left. 1993, the Wetlands Bar, Hippie Central, in NYC. River Phoenix's band was playing, and he was clearly tripping balls. Sample between song banter, smoosh his crappy woolen hat around on his head silently for 30 seconds. Then, "This is called a Lou hat. It's called that because Lou makes them." Okay, show thankfully ends. He wanders off stage and is standing by me, vaguely looking off into the distance. Me, Jesus, man, how many hits are you on? Him, hits? What's that? Me, acid, dude. I'm impressed you were able to play at all. Him, or, no, man, I don't do drugs. Few months later, he is dead on an LA sidewalk from a speedball overdose. He wanders off stage and is standing by me. Nice reference. Organize a good sized Comic Con, so I've worked with quite a few, but the saddest was really subtle. Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, was in the green room for lunch on the second day. He looks very tired and is almost totally wheelchair bound because of his terrible joint problems. I'm sitting across from him while we eat and his assistant asks if his hand is feeling alright to sign more autographs. Terrible arthritis. He closes his eyes and nods his head and whispers out, "How much longer will this go today?" to which his assistant delicately replies, "Just 5 more hours. And he whimpers a little and sheds a few tears as they wheel him away from the table and back out to the fans. The saddest part is that he's the nicest guy and never denies a fan while he's at the con and always smiles even though he's in loads of physical pain. Give the guy a freaking stamp pad to use. Jeez. He's definitely a champ for that, but there has to be a way to help him do what he wants for the fans, but also mitigate the literal pain of signing autographs. Seeing a movie in Ottawa with my mother as a child, and Tom Green was behind us all alone, looking greyish. My mom told me not to bother him because Drew Barrymore had just dumped him. Good advice. He said in a WTF interview recently that people still ask him about Drew Barrymore on the street nearly every day of his life. That must suck. People are stupid. I met George R. Martin at the Blaze Pizza in Evanston a couple of months back when he was in town to accept an award from Northwestern University. At the time, I was listening to the audiobook of A Clash of Kings, and he very excitedly told me, "You've got a ways to go to catch up." When I told him that I've already read what he's published 3 times, and I'm listening to the audiobook as a new way to experience the story, he just kind of deflated. He let out a big sigh and just said, "Yeah, I need to finish the next book. People won't stop bothering me about it." I had waited an hour and a half in line for a ride at Great Adventure, was in the front seat line so the wait was even longer. Finally, I was next in line, watched gleefully as my train pulled in, and Chris Rock and his family come walking up from the exit and I given my spot, without waiting at all. I was both sad and mad and have held a grudge against him ever since. A buddy of mine was a student at the University of Michigan while Michael Phelps was training there under Bob Bowman. He and a few friends were walking outside the natatorium and ran into Phelps, who was eating a granola bar while heading into practice. They were pretty awestruck and headed over in hopes of a photo or. Phelps quickly finished his granola bar in order to shake my buddy's hand. As they were shaking hands, he transferred the wrapper to my buddy, leaned in, whispered, "You can keep that," and promptly walked off. Honestly, that would make me laugh and I'd feel like that's about what I deserved for interrupting a dude's snack. Joaquin Phoenix and the drummer from the Raconteurs once came into the bar I was hanging out at. This was post crazy beard phase. He wasn't acting weird or anything, but a bunch of girls I guess he knew came in and they were all mingling, having a good time. I thought it would be fun to buy him, Joaquin, a round of whatever he was drinking. The bartender served it to him, turned around and pointed to me, and Joaquin looked dumbfounded, like totally flattered. He bowed and mouthed, "Thank you so much." I felt kinda dumb for doing it. Later on I found out, from the bartender, that he was acting like a madman. Not a total d-bag but just kinda wild, irritating folks, walking in front of cars in the street and being loud. When I asked for my tab, which had been pretty hefty, the bartender told me that he had picked up my bill, and all my friends' bills as well. So, crazy weirdo or not, I'll always remember that kindness, as sad as it was to see him drunkenly irritating the F out of people. Freaking Joaquin Phoenix bought my tab. I got cock-blocked by Brad Pitt. I was an extra in World War Z and I met this girl there and we were talking and all was great until one time Brad Pitt walks by, was very friendly to her, totally blanked me. His stunt double was a cool dude though. I've met Conan O'Brien twice. The first time was awesome. My wife and I were visiting NYC for our anniversary and went to see his show. Back when he was still doing late night at NBC, the guy that warmed the crowd up before Conan came out asked if it was anyone's birthday or anniversary, and I spoke up and said we were visiting for ours. When Conan came out, he came right up to us to shake our hands and give us a little present. A few years later, we went to go see his show when he was touring in between The Tonight Show mess and his TBS show. We were taking a walk around the theater right when his bus happened to pull up, and he came to meet us and a few other fans that were there at the time. He was so visibly exhausted and gaunt looking. After everything that he'd gone through, I could totally understand. He still talked with everyone for a few minutes and went on to do a fun show with his band later that night though. This is more embarrassing for me. 4 AM in an airport, I ran into Adam Savage. Strike 1. Don't talk to anyone in an airport at 4 AM. They're just as delirious and tired as you are. Strike 2. Don't frick up and say his co-host's name when you try to say hi. Bonus. He tweeted about 5 minutes later complaining about idiots in airports trying to say hi by calling him Jamie. Learn from my mistake. Nichelle Nichols. Met her at a con literally a matter of hours after Leonard Nimoy passed away last year. You could tell she wasn't all there in her panel, because her answers to any question would quickly turn into ramblings about her ventures in high school and her early singing career. I'm not sure if it was her age, the grief, or some combination of both, but it was really depressing. I saw Stephen King while getting some food in Exeter, NH once. I didn't walk up to him and saw anything, but I saw 2 or 3 people following him trying to get him to talk to them, which looked annoying to deal with. Poor guy. I don't know if anyone outside the UK will know who this is, but I performed at a festival where one of my childhood heroes, Craig Charles, was jing. I was a massive Red Dwarf fan, so I was so excited to meet him. Seeing him backstage, he was just this middle-aged guy in sunglasses and a leather jacket trying to hang out with all these young cool bands who didn't know or care who he was. That was kind of sad. Saw his jazz band perform in Bristol a couple of years back. He was so freaked up he attacked a poster of himself, then a bouncer. Was a weird night. I was on Jeopardy a few years ago, and was pretty disappointed to learn that the only time you see Alex Trebek is while you're on stage taping the show. He's just very dry and straightforward, not rude, but extremely businesslike. Richard Kiel aka Jaws from the 007 films. It was a shock to see how deteriorated he looked, riding a scooter because his legs were done, hands shaking, half blind, still signed every DVD and posed for every photo. Passed away 2 weeks after that. I also pee off Joe Edgerton because he didn't like my question, but that's more funny than sad. Quite a few of the guys I work with on events all knew him quite well. He literally kept working until the day he died because it made him happy. So yeah, while it's quite sad to see someone like that, you would have been a big part of why he never wanted to stop, and I think that's quite a nice thing. Aziz Ansari hit on me years ago and I was too starstruck to remember how to talk. Marian. Redditors who are sad right now, what's going on? I don't like feeling like I annoy others, so I never reach out and I end up alone in a depressing bubble. Distractions are the only things keeping me here. I know that feel, hang in there buddy. My mother passed on Monday. She took her own life. She was 58, and I loved her so much. It's day 3 and I still miss her so much. Don't make yourself to recover quickly. It's okay to take your time, especially when it's someone that close. My mother died 2 weeks ago. None of my friends came to the funeral. I'm sorry to hear that. I thought I had a lot of good friends, but they all have seemed to drift away and move on with their lives. Don't really have anyone I'd even consider as a friend anymore. I don't really know what to say other than there is someone else out there in the world who feels the same as you. I hope a great friend comes along for you soon. I miss my dad. He passed away a year ago. Some days it's okay. It's just a new normal. I refer to going home as seeing my mom, instead of my home or my family. It's just a lack of a dad. Like he's just away. Some days I think of the real dad I miss. His hugs, his talks, his humor. And it's not okay. It's really hard to get out of that feeling. I know he'd be proud of me. I know he won't want me to be sad. But there's just no other person in the world exactly like him. And there never will be. You took my answer. 1 year exactly. I miss my dad too. Take care. I hate my job. Too stressed, so lonely. I just watched the first episode of Planet Earth and a baby elephant gets lost, so he starts to follow his mom's tracks the wrong way. My girlfriend of 3 years whom I was deeply in love with cheated on me with 2 different people. I lived with her in the house we were renting from her parents. JFC don't ever do that. So I had to move out. Now I found out she's going to stay a couple weeks with the one guy she cheated on me with. He lives out of state, but she still wants to be friends. Don't be friends. F that man. Cut her off. You'll get over it a lot faster if you do. My dad has a month left. I didn't think it would affect me this much. Guess I gotta hold it together, huh? Also, frick cancer. Frick cancer. Treasure your time with him. God bless. I went on a trip a couple weekends ago with 2 friends. My friend took my car without asking and crashed it. Said he would pay for the repairs but doesn't seem to be coming through. May have to get lawyers involved. Otherwise, family health issues. My wife, who hasn't touched me for over a year, just came in the room to yell at me for wearing headphones to ignore her. This after my normal 11 hours shift plus 45 minutes commute home and cooking her dinner. She's doing homework, so I was giving her some peace and quiet. Guess I should just sit in the dark and wait for her to say something. This has become normal and it's soul crushing. My new dog vanished last night. No sign of him yet. He's never even left the yard before. Hope you saw the LPT posted a few days ago. Leave out a nice sweaty article of clothing you recently wore and some water and hope he picks up the scent. I guess it's an old hunting trick. Daughter was stillborn. It's been 3 months but I still cry every day. My parents had a stillborn before they tried again and had me. They only wanted one child. I wouldn't exist otherwise. This time last year, I confronted my family about my grandfather sexually abusing me a few times when I was very young. Turns out he fricked with my mom until she was 17. These truths tore my family apart. Grandma kicked him out. Family took sides. My therapy helped my fiance come to terms with his own history with sexual abuse. All told, it took us 6 months to do anything but crawl through life. Months later, I discovered that I was 5 months pregnant. I dismissed all my symptoms for acute stress and migraines until I felt the baby move. Having lived 20 years of adult life believing I was infertile, this was a miracle. My fiance and I and family on all sides were ecstatic. 7 weeks later, on the day before Christmas Eve, I gave birth to our dead son as a result of a knot in the cord. We took a month off to recover and it took months to get caught up financially. We found out 3 weeks ago we were pregnant again. We took the risk of telling the family out of sheer excitement and maybe relief. Last Friday we found out I'm miscarrying. This year has ground us down to the point that I feel I'm living with my face on the floor. Our only solace is our incredibly strong relationship. The fact that we take so much joy and strength in each other. But freaking heck Christ, when will this end? I wish I could give you a big, long and meaningful hug. I learned that my husband had been cheating on me for nearly my entire marriage. Shortly after I kicked him out, I lost my job. I'm okay and have a good support system from my family, but I still haven't found a new job yet. It's been about 4 months. I've started to feel empty. Things aren't making me as happy as they used to. I used to draw, but my passion for it is faded and I can't seem to get it back. I can't seem to find much reason to do anything anymore and it makes me wonder what's the point. Yes, I'm seeing a therapist. Yes, I'm on antidepressants. And things aren't even that bad in my life. I just feel empty, lifeless, not worth anything anymore. And it sucks. Sad inside, happy outside. I can still laugh after watching funny videos or hearing Redding jokes. But then in the end I'm finding myself saying, I am definitely crazy. I'm like this as well. I constantly feel sad, but feel like it can't be that bad because my reaction to things in the outside world are pretty normal. I don't know, we're weird. Hugs. I'm terrified of giving birth and wondering if I've made a big mistake. And of course you can't really pop off with that when a friend asks how are you? I don't know how to explain it or even where to start. All I know is it feels soul crushing, hopeless, as if nothing I do matters. Life sucks. It's all boring. Depressed AF. My dog died Saturday unexpectedly. It's been really hard on everyone. She had cancer but none of us knew, so we all feel guilty about it. I guess I just feel empty without her. My other dog is depressed as well. It's weird having one dog instead of two. I've got negative self-esteem and it affects every aspect of my life. I could tell my friends about it, but I'm terrified they won't care or they'll get fed up with me whining about things constantly. I know how hard it can be dealing with someone with depression and anxiety, let alone adding no self-esteem into the mix. My little chihuahua was attacked by a much larger dog while we were on our daily walk yesterday. It made a beeline for my dog and immediately tore into him. I had to chase after them as my dog was desperately trying to run away, and I lost hold of his leash in the fray. I eventually managed to wrestle the other dog to the ground, but not before it picked mine up and shook him like a rag doll. He's in surprisingly good shape, considering the ferocity of the attack, but I'll never forget the sound of him basically screaming while trying to defend himself. Went out on a date with the most positive girl I've ever met. She dresses as a superhero and meets sick children and volunteers for all kinds of stuff. I just spent the last 3 days drinking and watching movies and being miserable because I felt so lonely. The whole time we were out together all I could think was I can't get anywhere with this girl because I'm a selfish piece of crap and I'd only make her life worse. That's stupid bro, let her be the judge of that and she might even help you out that lonely place by just being a beacon in your life. It kills me that I am unable to get more friends or playmates or playdates for my daughter who is 6 years old because of my stupid introversion that saps all my energy at work. Thinking of moving to a condo that has more children. Right now she has to keep busy with iPad and that makes me unbearably sad. My problems feel so minuscule now after I read this thread, but end of senior year and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I don't know if I want to travel, go to college or completely just drop off the face of the earth. I have no real friendships and I feel alone. I crave interaction with people yet I push people away. Truly at this point in time I hate myself as a person and I just want to be able to love myself and find my way in life again. I'm graduating this semester. I'm scared as frick because I didn't plan because I figured I would have killed myself by the end of 2016. Now I got to figure it all out. Sad as frick about it, but at least I don't feel like dying so I got that going for me, which is nice. My mental health has been an ongoing struggle for around 5 years now. I am finally in a place in life where I am financially stable, have good friends, and I'm closer than I was to my family. But I can't help but feel this sinking feeling lately, like I know I should be happy, but I just feel lost. The sucky part is since I have dealt with this for so long, I feel it's very tiresome to talk about with friends. I don't want to bring down their mood with me. Gosh, I came here to post my situation. 1. I'm 26 and realized I have nothing going for me. I work a dead-end job. I'll never make it. 2. My GF, ex, now of 10 years just left me for another guy. 3. I have only 3 close friends now, who are all busy with their wives, or some jobs. 4. Because all of this I'm depressed AF. 5. In December I gave up drinking to lose weight. I lost 45 pounds. Yay. But because of this I have nothing to turn to. It sucks. I've been waiting for my boyfriend to return to me since October 2015 and I just found out he can't come back until October of this year. I've been waiting so long you'd think I'd be used to it or adjusted or something. But every day I wake up or go to bed without him still sucks so bad. I don't know how I'm going to make another 6 months. That's rough. 2 years apart is a long time for any relationship. Just know that if, and when, he comes back, it will be real, it will be powerful, and you will be much more than happy. I just got rejected by a girl, so that I guess. Just learned of my otherwise healthy mom's terminal cancer diagnosis. Not a good day. Summary of my 2017 so far. Tried to kill myself a couple of times this year. Got warded in a psych ward. Gets discharged but is judged by family. Ex killed herself yesterday. She had been suffering from borderline personality disorder and depression. I can't tell my family, cause they didn't approve of her when we were dating. My brother literally told me that he wished I had killed myself after all. Fricked up my legs, so now it hurts when I walk. Other than that, life's been pretty uneventful. The guy I like doesn't like me back, colon. Well, the girl I like doesn't like me back, comma, the situation is really the worst. I feel alone. I feel completely isolated from everyone. I know I'm not really and I have friends who want to hang out and do stuff, but I miss someone so badly, it hurts, and I don't want to hurt anymore. I'm going to have failed college classes for the 3rd time in a row. I don't really know what's wrong with me but it seems like I am always extremely anxious and depressed. I don't know what I can even do with my life if I fail out of college. I'm 12 weeks pregnant and my fiancé and I just found out our baby has a chromosome problem and I will have to get a medical abortion next week. Relapse after over 90 days of sobriety. Said horrible things to the love of my life that I didn't mean. Soul crushing guilt and shame. I'm sad because I told the guy I've liked for 2 years that I liked him and he laughed at me. It was like a flattered laugh, but still. My dog got put down recently but I haven't really been acknowledging it. Also I got into a fight with a sort of friend a month ago, except my friend didn't want to talk about it in person, so he ignored me for a week, then started to be polite, then kind of friendly but he goes hot and cold, as if he's also overthinking my reactions like I do his. It's stupid and I wish I never got myself into this in the first place. IDK I saw these two cute blonde girls today and they were in their own little world giggling and being silly with each other. I can't remember being so carefree and laughing as hard as they were. My dad died around Thanksgiving. He's the only one who I've ever really believed loved me. He really was the best father. I don't see a point in anything anymore since he's gone. It was so sudden. My boyfriend and I of 8 years broke up because he cheated several times. It's heartbreaking and our son will be 7 this year. It's hard to sit there and think that him and I won't have a house together or more kids. Our family is just torn apart. The worst part is that he's walking around smiling and totally normal while I feel dead inside. You feel this way because you have empathy and are a good person. Keep fighting the good fight, miss, and I wish you nothing but the best. My manager set me up with a lot of internal interviews he knew I wasn't going to get, to make it look like he's all about development to upper management. I'm going through a depressive episode, and I feel like all I do is ruin everything when I try to make friends. I fell for a straight girl, again. I can't figure out if my friends are busy or if I'm being ghosted. My girlfriend and I broke up. People knock folks for being sad about this, but it really freaking sucks. Internet hugs. Too much stress and pressure from society and parents. I want to become a teacher. Parents force me to do something like lawyer, doctor, engineering, you know what I mean. Also my finals just ended. Too much tension and if I fail I fear I'll kill myself. I'm crying now, it's like my soul is being crushed. I'll be shamed upon if I fail or barely pass. I'm not good at maths and I fricked up twice during the exams. If it happens again I would not be able to take and just do so. Think stupid. Also I have crappy parents who always mock me because of they being fair and me being brown. Always verbally insulting me. They hate me because I have acne on my face. Also yesterday I didn't read the Quran even though my parents told me to do so. Ended up get beating from my dad and I couldn't believe my mom did nothing to stop it. I often get beat up for the most silliest reasons and everyone in my family thinks it's okay to hit someone. My face still hurts and I felt like beating the crap out of him, but again I'll probably be declared an outsider and be forever alone. I cried for the whole night. Life's a bee. Hey, I know crap family is hard, but the great thing about them is that you don't need them. You can make your own way and grow your own ideas. Be you. Be who you want to be and remember that you can choose your own family if the one you are born in needs to be out of your life. About this girl. She seems to be in and out of the idea of being together and IDK what to do. Never been in this situation. I just want to drink my sorrow away. Just sleep until it completely subsides. You have been visited by the happy baby pygmy murder cow. Back away slowly and subscribe quickly to ensure your safety. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.